Right, hello. So it's really warm in Sweden today. So instead of sitting inside and sweating like a pig, I thought I would instead go out in this beautiful nature and record here instead. And also, I don't have a proper microphone for the video, so I'm using this old phone instead. So hopefully that is okay. But anyway, recently I uploaded a video called something like "When Forshawn to Prove That Less Is More," and that one got picked up by the algorithm, and the response has been really positive, and I'm really grateful for that, as always. I can never take that for granted, obviously. And yeah, some comments on that video, however, was a bit confused about this statement, less is more. Like, what does that mean? Shouldn't more be more? So I thought I would make this quick video where I kind of elaborate on this statement and kind of just define it in a more basic way, what I mean with this idea, and then kind of go deeper with this idea, because at the end of the day I think it's a really profound idea and really useful idea. So what do I mean with this idea? Well, basically, with a song like Other Side, the total song, or the song as a whole, consists of different parts. You have the guitar, you have the bass, you have the drums, you have the vocals, and all of these parts or components of the song, perhaps you would think that the more you add to each part, the more you add to the song as a whole. But actually, in my experience, I find that it doesn't work that way. It kind of, perhaps it works in that way to a certain point, but eventually, if all the parts start to add as much as possible, eventually I find that they start to compete with each other and take away from each other, and they kind of cancel out each other in a way. And you can't really appreciate the bass clearly when the guitar takes up too much space, and vice versa. So the idea here is that when Forshawn to make this super simple guitar solo for Other Side, it really makes it possible for the bass and the drums, all the other components, to be more expressive and more powerful. And that is the basic idea. And if you resonate with this, so basically, what is less is the individual component, but what is more is the total sum of these components. So that is the idea. So obviously, this statement is a generalization, but I couldn't really write a title like "When Forshawn to Prove That an Individual Component, when that is lessened, it increases the effectiveness and expressiveness of the whole." So that wouldn't be a good title, obviously. So that is why you have to make these generalized statements. But anyway, if you resonate with this idea, then perhaps you ask yourself, should I make everything I do, all the guitar parts I do, as minimalistic, as simple as possible? Maybe I should just have all the guitar parts to be complete silence, if that is the rule. And now we kind of get to an interesting point that I want to make in this video, kind of the main idea with the whole video. And I find that we get to a point that kind of has been lost in the world of or at least in when we talk about art and music and all that. I find that this idea that I'm going to express now is something that is often overlooked or underappreciated, and that idea is to know when is it right to add more things to make it more complex and add more energy to it and all that, and when is it right to do the opposite, to make it simple, to make it less, to make it more minimalistic. And basically, when do you push and when do you pull, when do you add and when do you take back? And to develop that, I find is a skill on its own, and I find that it is a skill that isn't really addressed too much, and that is why I thought it would be interesting to elaborate on this video here today, because I find that it is a really powerful idea in the world of music. And also I find that this is also what I really like about the artwork that Forshawn to put out, because I found that he's really aware of this principle in his playing, which I find to be really rare. And also I find that this principle can be applied to life and society in general. I feel like in general in society, the idea today in this modern society is to, when we have a problem, we'll typically start to look for things to add to solve the problem. But sometimes the problem perhaps best is solved by removing something. Like, for example, with medication, sometimes it could be good to take medication. Now in Sweden we have a lot of allergies, and I take a medication for that, for example, which helps me. So in that example I find it useful. But for example, if you have muscle pains, perhaps it isn't good to take medication to reduce the muscle pain, to reduce the symptom, but instead maybe you should go for a massage to remove muscle knots or something like that, to go to the root cause. Usually the root cause, not maybe usually, or maybe it is usually, that the root cause can be due to something that you need to remove, and again, I find that this is a really, really powerful idea. And just for example, with my videos in general here on YouTube, I find that sometimes it's useful to add things, invest in expensive equipment to increase production value and do a lot of editing and all that. And sometimes in what I do, I find it more powerful to just keep it as simple as possible. So basically what I want to end with this video is that this is a really gray area. It isn't that you always should keep things as simple as possible, that you should never buy a product or something like that, but it isn't the opposite either, that you always should add something, and always, you get the idea. It's a kind of gray area, and I find that it is a real art form to know when do you add things and when do you remove things, and it can be applied to not just music but to a lot of different things in life. And perhaps if you watch all the way to this point, you can start to think, what do you have in your life that is best solved perhaps by removing something instead of adding something to it. And that is everything I wanted to say with this one. So hopefully it was somewhat interesting, and I'll see you in the next one.